Jai Hind, Namaskar. Welcome to the very first episode of Neeti. I am Professor B.C. Anant and you are watching Neeti. The topic in consideration for the day is One Nation, One Election. Ek Rashtra, Ek Chunav. What is One Nation, One Elections? So we collected a lot of questions from across the countries, from students, from academicians, from several other scholars, and we have tried summing it all up in one single episode. I would like to give a big shout out to our sponsors for the first episode, BCA Technologies. Thank you for sponsoring us. And we have brought in ample of research papers and researches which are pragmatic in nature for you all to decode One Nation, One Election as a topic. This episode is going to be very helpful for the students of management and political science and several other streams, the enthusiasts of politics and geopolity, and those who are not able to find any substance in the mainstream media, unfortunately, that is busy in debating and getting TRP. So today we will decode One Nation, One Election for all of you, and we have a lot of questions from you all, like, sir, what is One Nation, One Election? Bhaiya, please tell us why did One Nation, One Election, which used to be practiced in India earlier, got stopped. Please tell us why has it been sent to the JPC or Joint Parliamentary Committee? What are your views on ONOE, and what are the operational impact or logistical impact of One Nation, One Election on Indian economy? Okay, we are going to decode it all with time, but to sum it up, we have a lot of substance that we will be discussing over the next course of some time for you all. One Nation, One Election. Let us understand what is ONOE. One Nation, One Election is a very basic concept for you to decode. Is one country going into election for all its bodies, be it the central government, be it the state or the provincial government, be it local body and every other hyper local body, all the elections at one point in time and one single time, right? So how is it going to work for India, which is a vast and diverse country? It's a very big question because India is a country of over 1.4 billion people. Of course, census is still due for last 10 odd years, 10 plus years rather. So how is it India, how is the government so confident that by 2029 government will be able to do all of it at once, at one point in time, and that too efficiently? But before that, a news from 2 days ago, do din pehle, right? 2 days ago, Times of India, around 5:52 p.m. came up with the news that ONOE, or One Nation, One Election, has been sent to Joint Parliamentary Committee, where 39 member of parliaments will be looking into it, led by Shri P.P. Chaudhary, who is a third-time member of parliament from Pali, Rajasthan, and a senior advocate at the Apex or the Supreme Court of India. And total number of MPs from the National Democratic Alliance or the ruling party or the ruling coalition are 22 and 15 from the opposition. ONOE panel is supposed to file this report by the first day of the last week of the next session, as recommended by the government and as required. So now let us decode ONOE, right? One Nation, One Election. Let's understand what happened recently in the United States of America. USA recently had its elections, the presidential elections, but not only the presidential elections, but also had its provincial elections. So USA has 50 states or 50 provinces, let's say states, right? All of them choose their governors, like we choose our chief ministers. Recently had Maharashtra and Jharkhand elections, right? And before that, elections like Haryana and other places, right? So those people in the United States of America did not only choose Donald Trump as their next president-elect, but also chose the governors or the ones who will be ruling those provinces, right? So what is happening? What is one nation, one election right now is you will choose the Lok Sabha and the Vidhan Sabha and the local bodies, maybe the municipality and all those things, all together at one point in time. How does the government or Narendra Modi ji's third term as a prime minister going to roll it in? The government now plans to conduct these elections, the Lok Sabha and the Vidhan Sabha, in 2029 by dissolving the local governments all together all at once. And in the next 100 days, after the state as well as the central elections are over, the government is planning to roll in the local body elections. Is it feasible? Is it practicable in India? Big question. Well, on 17th of September 2024, this bill was presented by the BJP and the National Democratic Alliance led government by Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji in the Lok Sabha, where it received close to 293 or 298 ayes or yeses, that is the support, and around 198 noes. The opposition calls it a way to break India or a plan to weaken the democracy. As stated in the Lok Sabha, one of the opposition leaders said ये षड्यंत्र है या ये साजिश है डेमोक्रेसी को या लोकतंत्र की हत्या करने की. Is it so? Let's decode. Well, in this case, the opposition as well as the government both have two very valid points. But why did this particular thing come into the picture? For that, we have to move in to the past of India. India's very first Lok Sabha or general elections were announced in the year 1951-52, right? Back then, all these elections happened all together. And this is not me saying, but this is the Press Information Bureau stating. So all these links that I am using as a reference will be mentioned in the description box so that you can all access to these papers and prepare for the whatever you like to prepare it for. See, the thing is, India conducted its 4 consecutive elections from the year 1951 till 1967, that is 1951-52, 1957, 1962 and 1967 as one nation, one election. But then started happening problems because a lot of governments or local governments, state governments rather, started to lose coalitions and started to fall. Plus another aspect that I see, as many of you had asked me this question also, that there were many new states forming in India every then and now. And it was getting difficult for a weaker economy compared to what we are today, world's fastest growing economy, to actually hold such a big chunk of election. Today we have EVM, today we have VVPAT, and today we do it in a super efficient manner, but back then it was quite a difficult task, and losing a lot of state governments, this became an operational challenge for the Election Commission of India and for the government at large. Well, now understand. So by 1971, the Lok Sabha was already extended because after that we had an emergency declared in the country. So till 1977 we had an emergency in the country. Now, with this, a bigger operational challenge came for the country because elections already got delayed in the country. All these states that were, or the center that was about to dissolve way before expected, had already been extended because of this emergency, and there was no election happening in the country. So after that, the country and the Election Commission decided that that's it, let's now focus on partial or separate elections, not simultaneous elections. Now we come to the next part of it, right? Why does the government want to promote one nation, one election, or organize or hold one nation, one election? As per government, there is a research paper that the government has put in, that government in 2000 by 2029 wants to hold this particular idea of one nation, one election, because they believe that the country needs more efficient system, and this has led to the resurgence of the concept of one nation, one election. However, the voting could still occur in phases across the country, but both tiers of the government, that is the state and the center, would happen in the same day. I mean, the phases would still remain the same, like you see happening elections in the states happening in 2 phases, 6 phases, 5 phases, like that. But all of it, I mean, both the center and the state in 2029, as per the government's proposed bill, will get into action of elections. I mean, choosing the state chief minister as well as the country's prime minister all at one in time. So what would it do? So by synchronizing or making these elections simultaneous, the synchronizing these timelines, the government approaches or aims to address logistic challenge. What is logistic challenge? Continuously bringing in all those big VVPATs is a big security challenge, because you often see the country debating about, or the opposition debating about, EVM hack ho gayi hai, या EVM में problem है, EVM में गड़बड़ी है, all that issues, right? Logistic challenge. Plus the cost of logistic. From the headquarters of the election commission to the state headquarters or to the local and hyper-local headquarters, taking it back and counting it into the polling booths, and all that is a logistical challenge, and all that money comes from the taxpayers' pocket, all of it, and we have very minuscule amount of people paying taxes, close to 4.2%. Reduced cost, of course, because all happening at once is a reduced cost, and minimize the disruptions caused by the frequent elections. Now this is a bigger point. This is a very, very valid point by the government of India, and this report actually has been prepared under the leadership of former President of India, Shri Ramnath Kovind ji, the previous president, right? Now understand this. What does minimizing disruption by election means? Now here's a very interesting data that I have brought in for all of you. As per a research paper published in 2017, we all have to understand that when elections are declared anywhere across the country, the entire system goes into a moral code of conduct, or Achar Samhita, where no appeasement, no bills are being produced or something like that happens. Why? Because any small action could lead to appeasement politics, and that is where the entire acceleration of the country, not just a state, but the entire country comes to a halt. So now understand, in Maharashtra basically, the fact is, elections happening at different levels of nation as well as state and local. In Maharashtra recently, there was what happened as per this research paper. In tenure of 5 years, the entire state could not work for close to 300 days, which is close to one entire year. And for a government that is ruling for 5 years, one complete year of no policy making, no public policy or action is a paralysis for this country. And that is where the concept of disruption of the policies or disruption of the actions caused by frequent election comes in. This is a very valid point, because this does not happen only in Maharashtra but every other state. Now understand how many elections are proposed in the next few years. I have a list, and the list is huge. I have just brought in a few. The next election happening is in 2025, it's Bihar and Delhi. 2026, Kerala, Assam, Tamil Nadu, West Bengal, Puducherry, and so on and so forth. And by 2030, we have many more elections aligned. So what is the plan of the government by ONOE? Well, the plan is in 2029, when the government of India goes into dissolution, all the states will also come to a halt. I mean, the states, just for one particular time, states will also dissolve, right? So this will give an opportunity to hold all elections at one point in time. Let's see this image, right? So this is your state government in 2029, and these are all your 29 states or all the union territories, and all of them are going to get into elections at one point in time. And within the next 100 days, once the results are declared, all the local bodies will also get into election. That means your municipalities, your panchayats, all those mayor chunav and all those things. So how is the government planning to pull it up, and why is the opposition saying it's the death of democracy or something to weaken or loosen the democracy? Government has a point, as we discussed it, right? Because you understand that the government has published an entire paper that discusses that this practice will boost India's GDP by 1.5% or add up to about 4.5 lakh crores to our GDP. That's almost half of what we spend on healthcare and 1/3 of the education budget. And it does not stop here. Please listen more. The study here also has shown that during simultaneous elections, the inflation decreases by 1% and the government expenditure, that is again pushing or using the taxpayers' money, goes up or shoots up by 18%, and investment to the economy also increases by 0.5%. This is humongous. Expenditure of the government, where your fiscal deficit is already getting out of the bands, and every certain rupee earned is close to twice what the government spends back on a citizen, is humongous. 18% is a big number. Now the BJP plans to implement this, but there are challenges. For the BJP or the NDA to do this, it needs first, now since it's in JPC, the JPCs will suggest some suggestions. The JPC will also add comments, and the bill then will be amended if required. It also faces challenges in the Rajya Sabha in the days to come in order to become a law. After that, it will go to for it to adhere to or to get accepted. 50% of these states, all these states of the country, that is for example 28, so 50% is 14 states will have to agree. Okay, the BJP led or the NDA led states might accept it, right? Might accept it. But what about the states where there is no BJP? So this is another operational challenge for the central government. Now come to the other fact. I believe national interest is always way ahead of any local interest. But for all of us, it should be mandatory to understand that for internal security and for internal stability, local ideology, local questions, local issues also matter. And a country can never be run without solving or working on its local issues as well as the bordering issues or the international or the national interest based issues. So this particular thing where country continuously gets into elections, now you see what has happened recently this year. Earlier this year we were voting for the prime minister to be elected, and then the next what happened was we went on to elect chief minister of several states like Haryana and many other states, right? And then recently Maharashtra and Jharkhand happened, where I also had voted for my candidate I voted for my candidate. The problem here is that with one nation, one election not happening right now in the country, all these paramilitary forces or the armed forces which are for the internal security have to be moved in continuously. And just in case any kind of mishap happens and these forces are engaged into these elections, it would be a little bigger than you know for a thoughtful person. It would He or she would understand what challenges the country might get into. Number two, when these things happen, the states all of a sudden gets a paralysis. The schools are converted into election booths. The education all of a sudden halts. There are a lot of security checks and a lot of things happening, and disruptions take over. All of a sudden, disruptions take over, which is a problem, which is a huge problem for the states. And so for the country, as I said, moral code of conduct does not allow any kind of progressive system or scheme to come in. Now with one nation, one election, these issues can be sorted, because all of a sudden, these disruptions won't happen. Of course, the election commission plans things prior to it, but these disruptions would be taken care of by one synchronized system, all elections happening at once. And number two, the opposition here also has a very valid point. The farmers, the Adivasis, or the tribal people, or the local people, they have this one chance through these elections to represent their idea and thought and tell to the state governments that, okay, you see, you did not do it well, right? Now we are choosing someone else. Like maybe what we saw in the case of a lot of states. However, the trends still show that whatever government, if in case comes to the center, also comes back to the state in power. But we all have to understand one more thing, that this bill, if enacted, might halt the long-term progressive policies by many parties. Why? Because if a coalition in a state that has elected its chief minister in 2029, for example, Jharkhand chooses its coalition government maybe in 2029, right? Where elections have recently happened. Okay, tenure ends all of a sudden, and then the coalition falls in 1 year itself, maybe. And midterm elections are supposed to happen. The government and the midterm elections happen maybe after 1.5 years. The government has a very short period of time left, or the coalition falls after 4 years and midterms are into play. Will the new government elected make progressive policies, or will it make appeasable policies? And this is a very big question mark, because this is where the concept or the question mark by the opposition comes in or falls into place. That what about the local bodies or the local voices? It is a very big question, because see what happens is, now if this bill gets enacted, and those states that already know that their time is about to come, or those states whose tenures would be extended, they will focus more on appeasement might focus more on appeasement. I'm not blaming or saying that they would. Rather, they might only focus on appeasement and to come back into the power. This is a question, and this is a problem. And so, who listens to the voices of these common people? आम आदमी की बात कौन सुनेगा? लोकल मुद्दों पर कौन ध्यान देगा? This is where the opposition is questioning that why do you want one nation, one election? Now, as I was also stating that if elections are synchronized, the chances of one political party that is in center, the same political party or the coalition getting elected, is actually by 77% as per the data. For example, if you see In 2014, the BJP won 283 or odd seats, which also went on to win many states altogether after that. The elections that happened back there, except Odisha and of course Andhra Pradesh, and in 2019, if you see, they swept even bigger and they came up with a tsunami of 303 seats. But this time, the same political party could not touch the majority mark. However, it ended up becoming the largest party of the country, but with 240 seats, and the second largest falling nowhere close to it with just 99, the Indian National Congress. BJP alone lost half of its seat in the Uttar Pradesh and many seats in Jharkhand. But it gained in Odisha and many more states. Many more states. Right? So this is where the concept comes in, that what about the local issues? Because if local issues are not discussed and the elections happen all together, will the governments focus on appeasement schemes? Governments or the local political parties with hundreds of parties in this country, will they focus only on such schemes, or maybe they'll think that let's push it? And if some midterm government thing happens, what next? Will the next or in the incumbent government coming in continue those policies, or they will again the same question? This is what is missing from this particular thought and from this bill. Now another thing that we need to understand here is, for the BJP and the current government to do this, they will have to do some reforms. What kind of reforms do you talk about, Anand? So as per this report led by Prime Minister Shri former President of India Shri Ramnath Kovind ji, the committee has proposed amendments to the Article 82A and 324A of the Indian Constitution to enable simultaneous elections for the Lok Sabha. There are some more considerations by this committee. They have collected responses from 47 political parties, out of which 32 parties supported this bill, and I am going to cite this in the description box below. They have cited the benefits like resource optimization and social harmony. However, 15 parties raised concerns about the potential anti-democratic effects and marginalization of the regional parties or regional thoughts and voices, right? There are several other institutions like the CII, the FICCI, the SHOSHM supported this proposal, highlighting the positive impact on economical stability of the country and reducing the disruption and cost of the logistic and election cycles, right? So how does the BJP want to phase it out? Let us now understand it. The phase 1, synchronizing Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies together, that I told you about, right? State and center and state elections at one point in time. Phase 2, synchronizing elections of municipalities and panchayats with Lok Sabha and state legislative elections within the next 100 days, right? So this is the idea of the government to do. Now let us also look at the timelines and key milestones of various Lok Sabha. Unfortunately, the country has not been very fortunate in completing a lot of Lok Sabhas, right? The data I was talking about, where 80% of the respondents favored the simultaneous election, the population size was 21,500, right? However, in a country of 1.4 billion, 21,500 people is still very less. I would still say that. And let's look at how the Lok Sabhas have worked in this country. The first, second, third, 7th, 8th, 10th Lok Sabha completed its 5 years tenure. Okay, but the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, the 9th, the 11th, the 12th and the 13th Lok Sabha could never complete their entire tenure. How did it go? The fourth Lok Sabha ended up in only 3 years and 10 months. The fifth Lok Sabha ended up extended, actually, as I said about the emergency thing, for 5 years and 10 months, right? 10 months is a big number because the other governments lost that particular 10 month of time where they could have discussed a lot of important bills because of the emergency enacted in the country. The next Lok Sabha, that is the sixth Lok Sabha, could only act or function 880 days, which is 2 years and 5 months. The ninth Lok Sabha worked only 450 days, that is 1 year and 3 months. The 11th Lok Sabha worked for 1 year 6 months. The 12th for 1 year and 1 month, that is the least so far, 399 days. And the 13th worked only for 4 years and 4 months. And all these ended up, that I have talked about, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, the 9th, the 11th, 12th and the 13th, mid-term polls were held and dissolution took place way before the elections. And of course, the 6th Lok Sabha was extension due to the proclamation or inaction of the emergency. Now, my point of view, as you all asked me about in this very important question, right? That what are your views, right, if I'm not wrong? See, here both the ruling party as well as the opposition have a very huge point to make. The country is the youngest in the entire world with a lot of economic halchal happening across. The number 2 fact is, with a lot of projection of de-alignment, the country with such huge inflation of population, inflation or inflating population, which is not shrinking, rather growing, I believe could not function with just 543 MPs in the times to come. So for a country of 1.4 billion people or so, such a huge chunk of logistic costs, 600 crores, 700 crores, 800 crores, putting where your GDP, which is a huge amount from your GDP, you might need to restructure this entire system in the times to come. But not without prior discussions in the Lok Sabha and later in the Rajya Sabha. And then, how does the center that is pushing this bill plan to bring in the concept of keeping the local voices alive? Because we have seen that this country's people are very smart. Elections in 2014, 19 and 2024 happened simultaneously in Odisha, Andhra Pradesh and a few more states with the Lok Sabha itself. And you saw that in 2014 and 19, Odisha chose BJD over BJP. And Andhra Pradesh in 2014 went with Chandrababu Naidu. In 2019 they went with Jagan Mohan Reddy's YSRCP or YSR Congress Party. And this year as well, elections when happened simultaneously in Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, governments did change and they chose their central government differently and simultaneously they chose their state governments differently. So this country and the voters are very smart because we are all driven by technology when we are very informed. So this idea that all the local voices will be diminished is, yes, it is not 100% incorrect, but I believe with the country growing at such a pace, with such a bulk and such burden of continuous election where sometimes your country does not function or the systems does not function because of the moral code of conduct for 300, 400 days, this is a big question mark. But can we make a few amendments to the moral code of conduct itself? Or will it help or appease the voters? That is a question. So to sum up, it is a historic step towards reclaiming or reshaping the entire electoral system of the country. And people today are gone so smart that we do not need to be spoon fed, but the local representatives, the local or hyper-local parties, political groups, leaders also need to understand, are they going to make policies for appeasement, or are they going to stay long term focused or focus on longevity? Yes, it is undeniably true that this bill, if enacted in the country, will save us hundreds and lakhs of crores. But we also need to discuss it and communicate it in the same manner which unfortunately the central government incumbent for the third term has not been able to do for many of its bills, be it the CAA, acts or bills, be it the CAA or the Kisan bill, right, amendment bill. So if this has to be enacted, the government has to be very proactive and preemptive in and pragmatic at the same time in skimming this through the skin of the people of real Bharat and not just the social media user India. This was it from my side. If you have any queries, you can put it in the comment box. If you liked it, go ahead and support this channel, this new show. And thank you again to the sponsors of the show, BCA Technologies, and my entire team for the precious research that I have brought in. Thank you all. We'll meet again with very soon with a new episode, and more than just an episode, a new case study for all of us to ponder upon. Jai Hind, Vande Mataram. Bye bye. See you all.